What if the United States collapsed in 2010? Igor Panarin is a Russian professor and political scientist who is mostly known for his prediction in 1998 that the United States will collapse and disintegrate by 2010. In 1998, based on classified data about the state of the U.S. economy and society 17 supplied to him by fellow analysts at FAPSI-2, Panarin forecast the probable disintegration of the U.S. into 6 parts in 2010 at the end of June, start of July 2010, following a civil war triggered by mass immigration, economic decline, and moral degradation. He forecast financial and demographic changes provoking a political crisis in which wealthier states will withhold funds from the federal government, effectively seceding from the Union, leading to social unrest, civil war, national division, and intervention of foreign powers. Explaining his theory in an interview with Izvestia, Panarin stated that the US dollar isn't secured by anything. The country's foreign debt has grown like an avalanche. This is a pyramid which has to collapse. Dissatisfaction is growing, and it is only being held back at the moment by the elections, and the hope that President-elect Barack Obama can work miracles. But when spring comes, it will be clear that there are no miracles. This hypothesis gained world attention a decade after its initial announcement due to the 2008 financial crisis, and has been widely criticized since, and the United States endured. His visions are mostly known for the map that came with it. In it, the United States is split into 4. The West Coast states up until South Carolina and also Tennessee and Kentucky would become Atlantic America, which may join the EU. The Midwestern states, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana would become the Central North American Republic, which would be a part of Canada, or under Canadian influence. The Sunbelt states would become the Texas Republic, which would be a part of Mexico, or under Mexican influence. The states west of the Rockies would become the Californian Republic, which would be a part of China, or under Chinese influence. Lastly, Alaska goes to Russia, while Hawaii either goes to China or Japan. This map is wrong on so many levels. How can a nation in North America become a part of the European Union? Also, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia wouldn't agree to be in this nation, as it would be predominantly blue. The Central North American Republic is more than twice as populous than Canada and has a higher GDP, and there is nothing that binds these states together, other than maybe geography. The southern states would never agree to be a part of Mexico, as they aren't even content being a part of the United States, and Mexico has its own problems already. Idaho and Utah would probably rather die than be a part of California, and China would have difficulties controlling just a vast area 1 ocean away. Lastly, Alaska is in every way closer to Canada than Russia, so that also doesn't make any sense. But let's just disregard any sense of sanity and focus on such a scenario. But what if that didn't happen? What if the United States collapsed in 2010? The most powerful of these states would be Atlantic America, as it has a population of over 100 million, or over 30% of the whole United States. Its capital would likely remain Washington, D.C. In terms of politics, it would be dominated by Democrats, as they would, based on the latest election results, control almost 2/3 of the Electoral College. Republicans would have to be more moderate to be more competitive, as they would also need to win in Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Maine at large, and Virginia, which voted by over 10% for Joe Biden in 2020. The Republican Party would likely be on the center, so something like Blue Sog Democrats or Tuesday Republicans, while Democrats might be more left-wing as they can afford to. Atlantic America would most certainly not be in the European Union. The Central North American Republic would be, with over 75 million citizens, the second most populous breakaway nation, but it would be the largest in land area. In terms of politics, this one would be the most balanced between Democrats and Republicans, as based on the 2020 election results, Democrats would win 65 electoral votes, while Republicans would win 67 electoral votes. Assuming it would have similar politics to Canada, most Republicans would vote for the Conservatives, with some voting for the People's Party, while most Democrats would vote for the Liberals, with some voting for the New Democrats and Greens. It's however unlikely that Canada holds on to this land. As I just said, it is more populous than Canada itself, and has a higher GDP, and so if anything, Central North America would control Canada. Furthermore, Canada is a close ally of the United States, maybe even the closest, and so I could see Canada being willing to return Central North America to Atlantic America without any resistance. With that, most of the United States would have been reunified and it would likely get re-established. It would already control a majority of the current United States population. While Democrats would still be the more influential group, they no longer have a monopoly, as Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan are enough to flip the Electoral College, but Democrats are still in a better position than in our own timeline, as they just need one of these three and not all of them. The very brief Canadian rule might, however, have its effects on the Central North, as they might demand electoral reform. Midwesterners might also be more polite and develop a love for maple syrup, ice hockey mooses, and Tim Hortons. The unification likely happens less than 1 year after the situation calms down, so by 2011. Given that Obama would be blamed for this disaster, Republican Mitt Romney would destroy him in a landslide, becoming the 45th president of the United States. He would then defeat Hillary Clinton in 2016, who just managed to turn 2 states and 1 congressional district. The United States would be a great power again, but a diminished one. The United States would be eager to reclaim its former glory and retake what was its, and its first target would be Mexico. Speaking of it, it would likely be hard to control the Texas Republic, but it might not have any intentions to give up that land, as it is wealthy and thus beneficial for Mexico. It is also, with over 80 million citizens, the second most populous successor state of the United States and by far the most conservative, as only New Mexico is a blue state. Mexicans would likely migrate there in order to find jobs, and without having to cross national borders to do so, this process would be accelerated. The Texas Republic would likely be plagued by anti-Mexican terrorist groups. Sometime during Romney's second term, the Second Mexican-American War would break out and provocations by the United States. The war would end very quickly, in less than a year, and New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida would be readmitted into the United States. A huge topic of contention would be what would happen to Mexicans who migrated to these states. Democrats would want them to stay, while Republicans want to send them back to Mexico. In the end, a compromise would be agreed upon, in that only Mexicans born in these states and their parents can remain, while those that are over 18 and don't have any children would have to leave. In 2020, Republican Lindsey Graham would destroy Democrat Joe Biden by carrying all southern states except for New Mexico, becoming 46th president. In 2024, he faced off against Democrat Bernie Sanders, who despite of his age won against Graham and become 7th president. In 2028, Tom Cotton would defeat him, and he would die soon thereafter. Tom Cotton wins re-election in 2032 against Michael Bennet. In 2036, Democrat Jon Ossoff would defeat Donald Trump Jr. in the largest Democratic landslide since the collapse, by winning huge in the Deep South, in large parts thanks to Latino voters in Texas. The United States has since built up enough to strike once more. China is weakening due to its demographic issues and thanks to terrorist action and guerrilla attacks from the California Republic. In 2040, on the 30th anniversary of the fall of America, the United States would invade California. Chinese forces would meet the Americans near Salt Lake, and the Battle of Salt Lake would be a great success for the United States, essentially giving them all of Utah. The United States would also see success in Idaho and encircled a huge portion of Chinese forces in Arizona, after which they withdrew to Sierra Nevada and Cascadia by the end of the year. That same year, he won against Republican Nikki Haley in a larger landslide. In 2041, the so-called Final Offensive was launched, and for the first time in decades, American forces reached the Pacific. The Northern forces withdrew to Seattle, where they escaped in a Dunkirk situation. In the South, all that would be left are Los Angeles and San Francisco, which too fall, after which China agrees to a peace. They would have to give back all of California, but gets to keep Hawaii. With that, the lower 48 would be reunified once more. During that time, a lot of Chinese people migrated to California, stiffing its demographics, and once more only those that are born in California and the parents of those are allowed to stay, while the others have to leave. But they wouldn't be shipped to China, but to other more friendly countries in Southeast Asia. The experience of communism has caused a rightward shift in those areas, and Nevada and Arizona are deep red states, while Oregon and Washington turned into competitive states. Nonetheless, in 2044, Joe Kennedy III would carry both, and maybe even Nevada and Arizona, thanks to the Sino-American War. With that, the lower 48 are reunified, but Alaska and Hawaii are gone. In this timeline, the United States would be worse off, but it would eventually manage to reunify itself and become a great power again by defeating Mexico and then China, and retaking what has been lost. Elsewhere, China and India would begin a Cold War over Asia, while European cooperation was strengthened in order to stand up against Russia. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.